Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Pillars of Eternity with me, Bring It On.
Need
Let's
something?
get to know Haravius.
As a peripatetic loner, I'm not privy to the latest news, but the Hollowborn Children is a tale that has reached even my reclusive ears. Or, rather, ear.
What do the Glenfathan Druids think of this plight?
It's been a long time since I've spoken with my circle. They'd probably tell you what I'd tell you. This plight was most certainly the consequence of someone trespassing into Nguithan places, not meant for folk. I mean, what else other than the gods could inflict punishment of such impressive scale?
He looks askance and shrugs. What are your thoughts on the Hollowborn?
Anytime a life is separated from its soul, I wanted to pretend it was just a rumor when I first heard of it.
His eye meets yours. His usual default smile becomes a frown. His voice trails off. He has several starts and stops, before finally deciding on how to finish his thought.
In my youth, I'd cursed the dear Woodens for being ignorant despoilers that breed out of control. But soulless babies? What heartless gods would inflict that kind of tragedy? No parent or child deserves to be a part of that horror.
Let's talk of other matters.
Need something?
Tell me about yourself.
My second favorite subject.
He runs his fingers through his scalp, preening his fur.
What would you like to know?
How'd you come to be trained as a druid? Haravius thumbs his half-shredded ear, and thinks to himself for several seconds. It wasn't, entirely by choice. Not at the start, at least. My ambition was to be a hunter. I merely arrived by a different trail. As a child, Nanamfoth came to visit. An honored guest is occasion for a grand chase, but I was left out. Instructed instead to be cupbearer to the Old Wise One, while the rest were on hunt. I'm sure you can guess what happens. Wise Anamfoth gives dumb child a shred of attention. We ended up talking until the hunters returned. He gave me... His hands dart across his body, scaring the pockets and folds of his tunic. This. He presents a rusted iron medallion, fashioned in the likeness of a hound's head. A common icon amongst the frontiersmen, explorers, and other seekers faithful to Galawain. Nanamfoth insisted I be trained, and none of my village would defy him. Now, he smiles broadly. I don't need a bow to hunt. Where are you from originally?
My mother's crotch. You?
Stare silently.
I grew up in Glonfoth, specifically in and around Thane Bog. My people, the Fisher Crane tribe, are migrant stewards of the land. I've walked the whole of Glonfoth many times.
What's the story behind the symbol of Weil on your eye patch? Weil is known as the eyeless face, so his symbol seemed a good fit for my eye patch. He absentmindedly runs his finger along the strap of the patch band. Weil iconography is rather popular in my home tribe, but it seems he is not as widely venerated here in the Deerwood. I remember thinking that if I consecrated my eye to he who obfuscates and reveals, then maybe with enough devotion, Weil would make use of the old ruin thing. He pulls on the eye patch strap and lets it go with a loud snap. If you think you see me staring at rumps and cleavage, it's really just the will of Weil controlling my gaze. Honest. What's your relationship with Galawain? I was raised as a disciple of the Seeker God. He is a champion of the hunt, be it the simple struggle for sustenance or the scholarly pursuit of knowledge. In my older years, I've found... He cuts himself off, shakes his head, and starts again. Life has shown me I am more suited to the ways of Weil. The furious hunt for knowledge often outpaces the journey to real understanding. Druids are known for changing into animals. What sort of creatures can you become? He takes a half step backward as you ask the question. All sorts of things, he says quietly with a long, uncomfortable gaze. Haravius stares at you blankly, arms folded. Let's discuss something else. I can't have secrets in my group. Out with it already.
Yes, I suppose you should know.
He grips his forehead and turns his face away from you.
I struggled with spirit shifting, the final rite of passage in my druidic training. I prayed to Galawain for insight and, in the style of seekers of old, went to the forest, alone, to ask for guidance. Then I got my answer. An answer at least. in the form of a vibrantly colored Stelgaer that pounced from the underbrush and made a salient demonstration of its capacity to eat things 1/15th its size.
He shrugs. You were alive today, so how did you fend off the beast?
Fend it off? I ripped off its arm and sent it running.
He strikes the face of an offended man, the smile's too wide to hide his amusement.
As the beast was lopping off bits of my handsomeness, I remember trying to fight back, swinging with arms too short to reach. I felt I had the energy for one last swipe at the beast's nose, and when I lashed out with a punch, my arm felt twice as massive, and my fingers sprouted talons. In a rush of power, I shifted into a mirror of my assailant. Apparently, he couldn't pick on someone his own size. By the battle's end, his severed arm was in my maw. The beast limped away in defeat.
That's quite an impressive tale. Not learning to spirit shift would win me some respect. Maybe trap myself in a deer and lass with a lust for little men. Alas, I might have been better off staying a novice. When I wandered back to my village, they saw my wounds and asked what happened. I showed them. The name they called my form was the Autumn Stelgaer, and his mouth opens, but he hesitates for a long moment before choosing his words. They were not impressed. The Rio of my circle believed the Autumn Stelgaer to be a heinous abomination. They said that if it eats you, your soul is invariably lost. As this was my first and most intuitive form, they deemed me a carrier of its evil. Even though I never so much as threatened my kin, I was ruled unfit and cast out. Ravia sighs, scratching his scarred face. I don't know what message Galawain was trying to send. The only lesson I learned was that the Seeker God will punish you for seeking. So you're some sort of soul cannibal. Ravia stares at you with a frown, before covering his face in his hands. No, he mutters. At least I think not. I never actually sat down and eaten an entire person to find out. I'm not that curious to find out. You didn't choose your spirit-shifting form. No, he says with a huff. It chose me, or so I imagine. I always assumed I would shift into a stoat. It seems more true to my nature. He points to the embossed pattern of Weil on his eye patch. As the Obscure teaches, when the answer is inscrutable, one must be content to ponder the question. Were you at least recognized as a proper druid? His brow furrows. No. I know I passed an initiation rite 5 times more perilous than any of those kin betrayers that insisted I was a failure. Can you learn to spirit shift into something less terrifying? Already can and sometimes do, he says with a beaming smile that quickly returns to a scowl. But the druids of my circle assign great meaning to one's first form. I'll always be unclean to them. Well, thank you for sharing your story.
Well, if you don't know me, you can't trust me. And if you can't trust me, odds are low you'll leap in front of a flying arrow to save my life.
He blushes and tugs at his tunic.
I've been meaning to visit the druids of Twin Elms to see if they know more about my spirit shift. If our journey takes us there, perhaps they can enlighten me with more information about the Autumn Stelgaer. But for now, maybe we can talk about something less depressing?
He clears his throat and puts on a pained smile. I want to hear more about Galawain and Weil. He stares at you blankly with his one eye. Oh, not sure what more there is to say on the subject, unless you're itching for religious debate. Well, tell me more about your thoughts on Weil. I came to know Weil in earnest in the first year of my exile. I asked myself why Galawain would punish me for asking questions, and just what just and fair god would punish me for doing what he asks. Questioning why I had been mauled just drove me mad. At the height of my worry, I'd have dreams where I only saw with my injured eye. My healthy eye became blind in my dreams. He lifts up the eye patch to gently itch at the socket. You catch a quick glimpse of a puckered and scarred abscess under the Weil embroidered patch. So one afternoon I stitched a stylized eye motif on the patch. I like to think of it as my self-initiation rite into the Brotherhood of Weil. Weil's not an instructive or overbearing deity. It does not freely dispense wisdom and expects all of us to question and explore with our own minds. Weil reminds me that curiosity is being receptive to any and all truths, not hunting for any one answer. Has Weil ever actually spoken directly to you, or sent you a sign? No, never directly, he says with a smile. Which is as it should be, given what he represents. I especially like how Weil never sends wild beasts to maul me, but maybe I have low expectations of such things. Let's speak of something else. What more can you tell me about Galloway? A frown overcomes his face as he ponders your question. Consider it a lapsed devotion. I'll always respect the secret god. He visited ruination on me when all I sought was knowledge, just as he taught it should be. He meshes his fingers together and flexes his digits until the joints pop and click. Galloway left his mark on me. When I see my shifted reflection, I'm reminded of his presence. Galloway still inspires my fear, just not my worship. Can't really defend these actions. Yeah, lesser man would accept the indignities of the god and ask for seconds. Good on you for walking away from Galloway. His cheek turns red, and he nods in agreement. Wish my kin saw it that way, but I guess I value my self-respect over the gods. I probably shouldn't have said that out loud. Okay, so we have his companion quest already.
Need something?
Yes, with a raised eyebrow. Tell me about Irglonfoth. It's a verdant land of history and culture. Of history, culture, and natural beauty. His voice falls into a half-whisper as he adds, we already have enough unwanted trespassers, so I recommend you never visit. Do you miss it? Used to, he says with a slight frown. He scratches his shredded ear and looks eastward. It's home. I'll go back eventually, but... He turns his attention to his shoulder, picks a small seed from the fibers of its tunic. See this? He holds up the seed. I know, just a seed. I've never seen this type before. I'm mission to find out what grows from it. Every day I see something new out here. I'll return home eventually, but for now, my curiosity exceeds my nostalgia sevenfold. Why should I avoid Irglonfoth? He looks at you puzzled. There are no cities to visit, no centers of commerce to explore. But see, most visitors come to our lands to pillage the Ingwithan ruins. The ancient Ingwithans gave the forest to our ancestors, and in return, we watch their ruins and see to it that they remain untouched. And before you ask, no, we don't have a secret passphrase or hand gesture. Nobody enters the ruins, not even the guardians and watchers. What can you tell me of your tribe? I'm from the Fisher Crane tribe. Most of my people live far to the southeast in and around the Thanebog. He weaves his fingers together and cracks his joints in a flexing motion of wet snaps. The tribe is not one of great renown, but we... Provius pauses for a moment. They protect their lands in accordance with the sacred oath of old. Yeah, that's an extra it. Keeps throwing me off. I keep seeing these little typos. And as much as it pains me to say it, I wouldn't want any other tribe's name attached to my own. Did you grow up in a bog? Only briefly. Here, let me show you something. Don't commit any of its memory, please. Provius rolls up his sleeves and shows you his forearms. The soft brown fur of his arms is lined with faint stains of henna and scar tissue. This is where I grew up, on the migration trail. I had it marked on my arms during my training. While much of the tribe guards the Thanebog year-round, many of us, including the Circle of Hawk and Ivy, honor the oath by patrolling lesser-known ruins scattered throughout the lands. He points at several of the henna crescents on his forearm. We eschew houses, take only what we can carry, and move camp every 2 moons to ensure that our sacred sites are visited at regular intervals. This nomadic patrol is how my druid circle came to name itself. We circle and protect like hawks. We only ever perch on the ivy of the ruins, that is, nearby trees, never to enter the builder's lairs. Why aren't the Fisher Cranes well regarded? Because the other tribes are insufferable sibling spawn. He grins broadly and stares at you for several silent moments. I suppose the Fisher Cranes have a reputation for being passive and reluctant to fight, which is another way of saying the other tribes fight hard, but we fight smart. Our namesake, the Fisher Crane, is a marshland raptor that remains stark still from sunrise to noon. We're invisible stewards of the land, and patient hunters of those who trespass. The three-tusked Stelgaer tribe see our methods as soft and unbecoming. I hear they use the same word for cousin as they do for whore in their dialect. Just an observation. Could you join a different tribe? Provius frowns and shakes his head. There are tribes that would take me. The twice-split arrows adopt outcasts like myself, but their ways are not my own. Some of them even live under roofs. How obtuse. It looks off to the southeast and sighs. I long for home, not just any home. A while has made my wanderings fruitful, and I accept that it may not be until my soul passes that I rejoin the Fisher Cranes. That's some other questions about Irglonfoth. Is he mocking me again? Aren't most Orlands and Irglonfoth wild?
Wild? Yes, I suppose all of us were a bit wild as my tribe was migratory and we didn't live in permanent houses.
His voice raises an octave in indignation.
But I understand what you're trying to ask. Yes, a slight plurality of Glonfoth and Orlands have forest plumage. Growing up with meadow plumage, I was assumed to be weaker than others my age. The huntmaster of my tribe only chose apprentices from the forested kin, or rather, wild Orlands, as they're called amongst slave-owning bigots, as well as bigots too broke to own slaves.
Ravius mockingly clears his throat. See, I knew it was going to be offensive to ask that. I didn't realize it was that offensive. My bad, I'm still learning, man.
I grew up in Glonfoth, specifically in and around Thane Bog. My people, the Fisher Crane tribe, are migrant stewards of the land. I've walked the whole of Glonfoth many times. What would you like to know?
Alright, pull him aside from the... hold on. What do the Glonfothans think of the Deerwood and its people? Ravius spits. Foreign looters obsessed with wealth and wine. May their bowels be obstructed with pus-weeping nodules. Every one of them. His scowl lingers and he scratches it at his ear stump. Not that you're asking a neutral party. When I was an insufferable child, and I usually was, my parents told me Deerwoodans would enslave me in this life, and the next if I didn't behave. I'm in their lands now, and I will, in the interest of academic fairness, admit that I've met several decent, mostly non-rabid Deerwoodans. He looks askance and folds his arms. My suspicion about them all being drunkards is proved entirely accurate. I wonder what great wonders they'd accomplish if they all sobered up.
I grew up in Glonfoth, specifically in and around Thane Bog.
Alright, pull him aside from the group. We discuss our party members.
Curious about your compatriots? Whom in particular?
Avrius steps in close and speaks quietly. What do you think of Adair?
He's nasty, brutish, and tall. So, two-thirds like me, I suppose. The circumference of his neck exceeds the circumference of my torso at its thickest point. They sure do breed them big and dumb in the Deerwood, don't they?
Ravius chuckles. After a short chuckle, his voice falls gravely quiet.
No, I'm being a brat. Truthfully, I think the guy's a lot more gentle than he pretends. He's certainly got a big heart for animals, at least, which is rather telling of who he is under that soldier exterior.
Ravius smiles and scratches the film of his teeth as he studies your reaction. What are your thoughts on Pallegina?
Her zeal is sincere, and I can tell you she's destined to die on her feet. And she's easy on the eyes. Can't fatten a thoroughbred, that's what I always say. I just wonder if she has a cloaca or not. Ooh, the curiosity is killing me.
His voice becomes a near whisper as he adds, Cloaca?
Yeah, cloaca. It's a combination feces chute and happy slot. Birds usually have these hybrid holes, and I figure she might too. What? Don't look at me like that. We can speak another time. Lead the way.
Ravius nods.
Yeah?
We're not done talking,
Need
buddy.
Something? Curious about your compatriots? Whom in particular?
What do you make of Aloth?
Oh, him? Him I don't mind too much. Though I could pitch a tent with the pole wedged up his anus. I could smell something funny on him. 2 cents? Not quite. Well, whatever it is, take note of his mood swings. I don't think he's unstable. I just think he has a lot going on up there.
Ravius snorts and wipes his sleeve across his nose. Sagani, what's your impression?
She actually steps lightly when we travel outdoors, which is more than I could say for the rest of you. They do things differently where she's from, but she knows her way around the woods almost as well as I do. Almost.
Tell me your thoughts on Durance.
Oh, love at first sight. It's like WoW carved an ever-changing gash in his brain, and every hour he's a different flavor of angry. Durance makes me feel like I'm the same one. He smells like fear in the mornings and rage in the afternoons. I'm keeping my eye on him. He's a laugh, but he might someday be a problem.
Rabia smiles. He scratches his eye patch and chuckles softly.
We can speak an—
How may I help?
Ask my other companions about my companions?
Hey. What's on your mind?
There we go. Tell me about your brother.
Woden was, about everything you'd want your firstborn son to be. Dutiful, honest, put thought into everything he did. Real pain in my ass. Made me look bad about every way he could. It wasn't something he tried to do, but of course that just makes it worse.
He laughs.
Not that he didn't get into trouble himself. He was just better about feeling guilty after. But we used to have this farmer near us, Hereward. Couldn't stop talking about how well he cared for his chickens. How their feathers were the whitest in town. Convinced the butcher to pay him double what the other farmers got. Me and Woden got tired of hearing it. I was maybe 11, 12 at the time. We borrowed about 6 different dyes from the dyer one night. Dyed Hereward's chickens every color but white.
Dare grins widely at something remembered.
Next morning, the butcher comes knocking, asking for 6 of his whitest chickens. We were feeling great. Up until Hereward saw what we'd done. He just got on his knees and cried right there. All those colorful chickens around him not knowing what to make of it.
Dare chuckles, beaming mischievous pride.
I thought it served him right, but I could tell Woden had other thoughts. Sure enough, the next day, every one of those chickens had been scrubbed down. They weren't white, mind you, but Woden sure tried. Never said a word to me about it, but I knew. That was Woden. My parents, they always let us be who we were. Never told me to be more like him or anything like that. Which was good, because I was never gonna.
He grins.
What's on your mind?
I'm ready.
Oh, whoops.
Need something?
What?
Alright, let's talk to our buddy Durrance again.
If doubts and curiosity... Huh. Huh.
Alright, so I think we've exhausted all dialogue with Durrance, right?
Answer.
Alright. Why were we supposed to meet? Why of it is you're a watcher? He snorts. A watcher runs 2 roads of why. For me, it's more a matter of what. There's a time when I wouldn't have spared a sorry, I lost my place. I would have spared a thought for your words, even bothered with you. But now, seek out watchers is what I do. Put the truth to them. See which of the 2 ways they bend. He smiles slightly, haunting. And what 2 ways are those? I think we've read this already. Yeah, we've already read this.
The cost of troubling
I wish these would gray out properly so I keep track of what I've asked him.
I suspect the answers will seed...
Okay, so even when he's not answering new stuff, it still counts towards his question counter. That's annoying.
Yeah.
Alright, well, let's keep exploring Stormwall Gorge. Excited to take Ravius' spirit shift out for a spin. Can we not go down here? Okay, so that's probably tied to this.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite classes are shapeshifting druids. I don't play them very often because they're usually not very good, and they fall well behind my favorite
You
types
must
of
gather your
classes.
party before venturing forth.
Like paladins or cavaliers, any sort of like leadership based class are my absolute favorite. But I do really like shapeshifting druids as well. Hi, buddy.
Need something?
I bring your
Hang in there, buddy.
I'm ready.
Can't see their health because of where we're at on the map, which is a little frustrating. Alright, they're not dead. Come here.
Hi?
What?
Guy does not want to go down. So I couldn't see which ones are young drakes and which ones are their drakes because the, again, where we're at on the map, I can't see their health bars.
Just think.
mow it.
Hi?
I'm hoping for another domination proc. Or two more, ideally.
That's not very...
Yeah.
Alright, we did it.
Sure.
Now we gotta do it again.
Here's a lesson to...
Yeah?
Yeah.
How?
Alright, found a cave, just called Cave. Alright, so this is probably for Sigani's quest.
Hey.
Right.
Alright, I think I'm going to call it here. In the next episode, we will explore Searing Falls. We have the cave for... Well, the quest is going to take us inside the cave. Same with the quest. Cinders of Faith. So knock that out. We'll return to Defiance Bay, turn that in. And then we'll decide what to do next. So I'm not going to plan that far ahead. But for now, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.